Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is the last video in the series to kickstart all of my 2024 goals. I decided to keep them all separate again this year because it's so much easier to go back and reference the various videos if I keep them all broken up as opposed to like lumping things together. So this video is just going to be my January action steps. Step one is to watch my 2024 overarching goals. What are my 2024 personal goals at the top level, which is a little bit vague this year. I mean, they're always kind of vague, let's be real. I'm a vague personal goal, annual goal person. And then my quarterly goals video where I share my 8 quarterly goals that I'm focusing on personally in Q1. And in this video, we're gonna talk about the specific action steps that I'm taking in January. Now, I am not anticipating this video to be very long because I am keeping things very simple in January. One, my goals are just kind of simple in Q1, and so that lends itself to simple steps. But also, I have a little girl and she is 4 months on January 1st. And so there's still a lot up in the air in terms of figuring out my routine with her. I've talked about this with a lot of my new mom friends. Most of them don't work for themselves, right? So they have this like clear black and white day that they go from I'm not working and on maternity leave to I am back at work. And I have never had that day. I really started doing some work. She was maybe like a month old. I started doing a little bit of work and then a little bit more and then a little bit more. And so there's never gonna be this black and white day. But in the new year, I am going to try to pick up the number of hours that I am working each week as she gets older. Now, I know I'm talking about work when it comes to my personal, but I'm gonna get there. However, at the same time, my mom is gonna be out of town for a good chunk of January. They're going down to Florida to visit my grandparents and hang out and get out of the Chicago cold. They do that every year. And so my support and help with my daughter that I have during the day to work shrunk. And so subsequently, I've also shrunk my personal goals for the month because I know that with the less help for work stuff, I'm gonna end up doing work stuff during naps and when she's asleep, etc. And so some of my free time to do personal stuff is going to be lowered as well. I feel like that was a lot of background information that may or may not be helpful for you, but that is why my January is simple. It doesn't mean that you have to fill up every line if you don't have that situation, but keep in mind that you don't have to, if you're watching this video before January, you do not have to come out of the gates blazing and start all the things on January 1st to have a successful year. You do not. So let's talk about my January action steps. Starting with the one-time steps. So the steps that I will do one time and I will be able to check it off. The first one is to make a list of the doctor's appointments that I want to make. This hopefully won't take me all that long, but I do feel like I need to sit down and take the time to think through all the different doctors that I want to make sure I make appointments throughout the quarter. I know I threw some out in the quarterly goals video of like, oh, I need to see the dermatologist, I need to see the dentist. And I feel like that's what I keep doing is like throwing doctors out. And I feel like I need to sit and actually make the list. And then I guess the next piece of that will be to then ask for recommendations from the people that I do know that live here. So my family that lives here, friends that live here, some of the new moms that I've met, do they have any recommendations for these varying doctors? And then the next one-time step is to just make one appointment. If I could just make one appointment in January, I will feel good. And that's really focused on the kick-starting the momentum I need for that goal. The next one-time step is related to our 2024 travel, and that is to book the flights for at least the first half of the year. I mentioned in my quarterly goals video that I'm cheating a little bit and having a conversation with my husband about our 2024 travel during that week between Christmas and New Year's while we're both off of work. And so I will feel good about the plan and I want to get the flights booked for at least the first half of the year. That's probably the most intense one-time step, and in fact it needs to be broken down a little bit somewhere else because there will be more than one set of flights that I am booking in that step. The next one-time step is to pick which swim company we're going to go with for my daughter. I have it as my Q1 goal because I know that the one I have looked at starts at 4 months and she will be 4 months. But is that the one I want to go with? I don't know. There was one thing that I saw in there that I was like, maybe that's not the one for us. So I need to do a little bit more research. So my goal in January is to do the research and pick which swim company we're going to go with. And then the last one-time step is to make a list of those monthly items that I want to try and do every single month, which means I'm probably not gonna do any of them in January, which is totally fine. I may aim to do them like the first week of the month. You know, it's interesting. And I said this in my annual goals video. I make these videos for you and I want them to be helpful for you to see my goal journey. But talking about my goals, I usually think of something. Something usually comes up. And one of the things I feel like I've tried in the past when it came to these like monthly recurring tasks is I always felt like I needed to do them at the end of the month to kickstart and have a fresh start the new month. But for whatever reason, most of the time, the end of the month feels busier and more overwhelming, and I have other stuff going on. And part of that is my business. I think my business gets a little busier at the end of the month when I'm focused on helping you refresh your goals, that I'm like, maybe those monthly steps, and I'm talking things like washing my makeup brushes, changing out the automatic litter box for my cat that needs to be updated monthly, like those kinds of things. Maybe I do them the first week of the month instead of trying to do them the last week. I don't know why I've always done that, but anyways, so that might work. In January, I'm gonna make the list, and then in February, I'll execute on them. And that's it for one-time steps. Let's move on to weekly. I have 2 weekly action items for January, and I knew I wanted this number to be low because again, with my mom being out of town, my weeks look very different, and we have family coming into town. Like January is just kind of all over the place. So I wanted the least amount of weekly items, which would have been 0, Laken, not 2. But anyway, I have 2 weekly action items, and they are both related to enjoy being in the kitchen goal. The first one is to plan 1 dinner. Getting back into meal planning with 1 dinner for the week. That's it. I can handle that. Pep talk to myself. And then the other weekly step is to organize 15 minutes in the kitchen. I am trying this in January. I am torn with whether I think I would be better off doing a little bit at a time in the kitchen, 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there, or spending a whole day and being like, Sam, my husband, you have Lila for the day on like a Saturday. I am spending the whole day in the kitchen. We're gonna try this in January because I knew I wasn't going to have that whole day in January, that our schedule was not going to allow that. So I'm trying this way. If this works, then I will continue it in February, maybe upping the amount of time or frequency that I do it. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, then in February, I will just plan a day where he takes her and I just overhaul the kitchen and take the whole day to reorganize it. We'll see how it goes. This is what I try to tell you a lot, is that a lot of goal setting is trial and error, and you have to try different things to see if they work. And you could break that goal down in both of those ways. And I'm hoping that this way works so that I can kind of just chug along and make progress, but I also see a world that it doesn't. So we'll see. Daily action items. So I have 3 daily action items, but then we're gonna talk about one that I kind of wanted to add, and now I'm like, it's gonna look silly on this page, which is a dumb reason not to add a step. But anyways, let me tell you about the 3 that I did write down first. So the first 2 are both related to the morning routine quarterly goal, and I'm keeping it very simple. I am starting with 2 steps, which is a little bit more than I would typically tell you to do. I would typically tell you to only start with 1, but I'm starting with 2 because they are both very short and small, and I was already doing one of them. So one of them is not new, I'm just kind of reinforcing it. And that one is the daily gratitude. I was already doing that, although I have big empty chunks from 2023 where I did not fill anything in, but I wanna kick off the year focusing on that. And that one, you will, when we check in January, probably see a check mark every day because I'm using that more as a tracker as opposed to did I do it today? Because I will miss days. You will miss days. We all miss days when it comes to our daily habits, but I want to do the gratitude. I want to go back and play catch up because I only want to be trying to miss 1 or 2 days. And so I do want to play catch up. I have said before, you do not have to play catch up with things. If it is podcasts, if it is gratitude journaling, if it is whatever, you do not have to go play catch up. And I won't for some of 23, like again, big empty chunks of time. But in 24, my goal is to only miss 1 or 2 days if I miss days, and then yes, go back and play catch up. So I am hoping to have all of them checked off by the end of the month. It doesn't mean that I did it every single day though. The other one is I'm going to check off the days that I actually do it and I anticipate missing days, and that is reading the Daily Stoic. Y'all, I love the Daily Stoic. I've talked about this book so many times. I started reading it for the first time in 2020. I read it again in 21. And then I have, for the last 2 years, tried to find a different daily reader that I liked as much and was not successful. So I'm going back to the Daily Stoic. I brought a fresh copy because I'm coming at it with a massive change. I was not married, we did not live here, and I did not have a baby last time I read this book. So I'm excited to read it with fresh eyes, and I'm kickstarting that on January 1st. And then the last one-time step does have the color of our household rhythms and routines, but it probably will fall into my morning routine for the most part. But if I don't do it in my morning routine, I could still do it later and obviously get the check mark for it. And that is tracking our finances, getting back into tracking it almost every single day. I don't need to do it every day, but I know that when I do it regularly, it feels less overwhelming and therefore I am more accurate. I talked about this in, I don't remember if it was the quarterly goals video or the annual wrap up, like the Q4 wrap up or the 2023 wrap up. But in one of those videos, I talked about how I was getting lazy. I would go to Target, spend $100 at Target, come home, I would log it into just one category. There is no way that $100 was just for one category. It was likely something for the house, it was likely some sort of grocery item, and it was likely something for the baby at least, and then maybe something for myself in there, right? Like it was never just all one of those categories, and I would just throw it into one of those categories and get super lazy. And that was not a priority at the time. Now I really wanna get focused on splitting out things like that when I can, because I think it's just really helpful to know where our money is going. And so that is why it is a priority in January, to get serious and to make it a priority. I feel like I've said priority and focus 800 times in this video. Okay, those are my action steps for January. I am very, very excited. Let me know down in the comments, what is one action step you have for January that you're super excited about? Normally I do like a celebration wins on these videos, but we're kicking off the new year, so let's talk about what we're excited about, and next month we will check in and I want to hear about all your wins for January. But that is it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. Let's